Greetings and salutations, Georgia Tech faithful.
Hello. Welcome.
Give everybody a minute to jump on board. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to our channel. Helps us. Pushes me to do more content when you guys watch stuff and like and comment about it. Except for the crappy comments. I don't love those, but
What about attendance comments?
I thought it was better than expected, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, it was a miserable weekend. Like, it was just a constant threat of rain hanging over everything. Yet it never, like where I live, it didn't really rain that much. So it was like sort of annoying. My ground around my house is like the equivalent of bricks right now. It's so hard from the lack of rain.
It rained up here. My dog was in the garage for about 3 days straight. So,
well, it's no fun.
no, she had a lot of energy to let out.
I'm sure. So we'll jump into the questions here, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Louisville game. I have not really watched them much this year yet, so
Me either.
I have to watch some condensed games or something later this week. They haven't really played much of anyone, so they haven't been exciting to watch any of their games. I feel like I've seen pretty much everyone else in the league play but them at this point. So, but we can start wrapping up on the VMI game. I'll just say that was among the worst teams I've seen them play. Like, they were just not very good. But they beat them soundly, which is exactly what you want to see. They settled in defensively. They had 10 3 and outs in the game, plus another drive that ended with the half. And then the only touchdown drive they scored was on the third string defense with guys playing for the first time ever. And there were a couple of like dumb penalties that extended the drive. Like, they had a PI on walk-on linebacker Austin Dean, and like some other weird penalty, I think, on that drive that allowed them to score. So, all in all, it's what you want to see. I think it's been instead of being like a game where there's like some back and forth and stuff, it just wasn't. So I'm excited to see that they actually handle their business for once. And we're at the point where, like, the Georgia State game, I mean, look at what Georgia State did to Vanderbilt. Like, they're playing and taking care of the lesser foes, which I think is a step in the right direction. Those are one of the things with Paul Johnson where it was pretty consistent, that they handled teams in those games. Most of Paul's losses, other than the weird Middle Tennessee State game where they stole the signals, were to like either like upper echelon G5 teams like the USF, UCF kind of level teams, a Memphis level team or something, though he didn't play them, but like that level, or to other P5 or like a BYU or something. So we're at least seeing Georgia Tech back into the ground that I expect them to be in, where there was at no point in that game where I think anyone was concerned about the outcome of it, I guess, after the first field goal of the game, right?
Well, yeah. After they punted after the first punts
They
back,
didn't score a touchdown in the opening drive,
yeah, punts back and forth, and after that, it was all downhill. I mean, I like the same thing. I mentioned that in my takeaways. Is there's been some games in the past where it's hard to get up for opponents like that, and kind of waddle around and beat them, but not impressively.
Well, the offense isn't good enough. Like the Citadel game, they lost. It wasn't really the defense in that game. They just couldn't score. They were so bad on offense. And you go back and if you look at like the PFF numbers, even from that Citadel game, they were fine on defense. The offense was just so atrocious but now the offense is good. So they were able to they did exactly what I thought they were going to do. This is what I told you before the game, that they were going to throw the ball a lot and work on that, because that is been sort of the struggle in the first few games. They haven't been as consistent. They want to get the passing game going, which is what they did. I think Malik played 13 snaps, had 4 catches. Eric played like Eric Singleton played what, like a half, maybe less than a half.
Yeah,
Had 5 catches, 102, and then a 15-yard run.
he had that drop that would have been 50 more yards, or I mean, yeah, that where
Yeah,
it
yeah, on
hit the
yeah.
ground.
So I mean, all in all, I thought it was pretty encouraging to see them handle their business. Now, what does that mean? We don't know anything because VMI is not good. So like, you get to play Louisville this week, then you get your bye where you can reset yourself, and then you start into sort of the main, what I would call the main ACC stretch of the schedule, which is the games with Duke, Carolina, and that group of Virginia Tech, like those games where you're gonna really find out what this team is and what they're about. And I'm excited to see how they play. I have no idea what to expect out of Louisville. Louisville, like I said, is they're 2-0, but and coming off a bye, so like they've played half as many games as Georgia Tech. Um, they're another grad transfer quarterback, and a pretty stout offensive line. Um, and then interesting, different, weird pieces on defense. They have a kid from USF on their D line who I was okay there. Just looking at their roster, it's sort of like, okay, like there's nothing that jumps off the page at you when you look at them. That's not an insult to them. It's just like they're not they're not made up of big names. It's hard to tell what they are, and they really struggled at times last year, and they were real up and down based on their quarterback play. So I don't know.
I think that, I mean, just looking at their roster compared to last year, I think that their roster is not as good this year as it was last year. I mean, I think they lost some really big pieces. But yeah, I mean,
And they had a
yeah,
quarterback on his third school.
right.
Uh, and
I looked at
Joe.
their rushing stats. I guess since they've played only 2 games and they've been blowouts, they kind of had kind of equal rushing yard. 2 or 3 guys had about the same amount TDs and yards, and so yeah, I don't really know what to expect. They hadn't really been in a game, in a competitive game yet. So, and
Yeah,
I
the
think
thing with them is, Jeff Brom can coach. Like, that part of it's not as much of a question. Like, he'll have a competitive team. Like, it's like everything else in the ACC, right? Like, so we jumped into the season and, well, first of all, the 2 teams they beat are combined 0-6 right now. So, Austin P and Jacksonville State are getting just smoked every week.
that's surprising to me because I thought Jacksonville State was pretty. They
But
were pretty good last
apparently
year.
they went to double overtime this week at Eastern Michigan. So maybe I don't know how bad Eastern Michigan is, but and then the Governors lost to 2 FCS teams and got smoked by Louisville in the opener. So it's like we all looked at the opening slated schedule, right? And we all thought that Florida State's going to be good. Um, Louisville will be good. Carolina will be good. Notre Dame, Virginia Tech was supposed to be good, and Miami and NC State. Well, if you look at it now, I'd say Syracuse is much better than Florida State. We don't know about Louisville. Carolina is a mess because their quarterback situation. And we're a little bit of a dogfight with North Carolina Central for a while. Notre
I
Dame
saw
lost.
I saw Carolina got some votes in the poll today,
Did they?
so that was kind
I'll
of
have to
weird.
look and see who voted for them. I'm always curious about that. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Virginia Tech has not been what they were expected to be out of the gate, far and away. Miami's looked really good. NC State is not, and I think Grayson McCall got hurt. So, like, who
Yep,
knows where they are at? If he's seriously hurt, that's a pretty significant blow to them. And then, dare I say it, Georgia looks pretty vulnerable too. So, like, there's the same thing happened last year. Everyone was like, the schedule's so hard on paper, and then Georgia Tech lost games that they on paper should have won, Bowling Green and Boston College, and then beat Miami and what was the other game they won last year that was weird? Kelly, come on. Oh, the North Carolina game.
Yeah, yeah. My
Um,
brain.
sorry, yeah. And were at least competitive with Ole Miss. Should have beat Louisville in the opener last year in the Benz. So I'm curious. I mean, this was a team that's you know has been in games like how engaged are they going to be? What's the road going to be like? Louisville's an interesting place to play. They usually have a decent crowd. There's a lot going on that weekend there. There's a giant music festival going on called Bourbon and Beyond, where there's going to be a lot of people in town. I don't know if that saps the people coming to the game or not, but just looking at it, I don't think anyone knows what to expect. I just think Brom's done a good job. They're very consistent with him as a head coach. They were consistent at Purdue with him, and you've seen how far Purdue's fallen off since he left. So I'll be curious to see what that looks like, and I'm excited to watch it. And I don't know. I don't think you can glean much from the the thing. I'll just say, Brent's been pretty good against the spread on the road. What is it, 10.5 right now?
10 and a
Um,
half. I think somebody saw it. It was up to 11 and a half this afternoon. So
I would always say they're pretty good at covering on the road as a dog. I forget what Brent's stat is on that one too. And Louisville's ranked, right?
they're 19th, I believe.
Yeah. So again, that's there's Brent. I think uh, has he lost a game against a ranked ACC team yet?
I know he
Trying to
was
think.
10-2 against the spread. Go against uh,
He was 5-0.
as an underdog going into the Florida State game.
I think he's 5-0 against ranked ACC teams or something like that as a head coach, which is insane. Because they beat Pitt on the road, they beat Carolina the first year. Okay, then last year they beat
Carolina.
Miami and Carolina again, and then this year they beat Florida State. Yeah, he's 5-0 against ranked teams in the league. Uh, the ranked losses are I think Ole Miss and Georgia twice. So that's pretty good sledding if you want to think about Ole Miss and Georgia have lost probably like 4 games the last 2 years combined. So and mostly by Ole Miss. So yeah, he's been pretty good about the team playing well in these games. I'm just curious to see what it looks like. I think we're still at the point where we don't know what this team is yet in the defense, and you've had guys out, and I think there was some benefit last week to having to play TC more, playing Tajay Butler more. Tajay playing for Kyle Eford at the Mike linebacker was interesting. What do they get there, and trying to find some linebacker conversations. So I don't know.
I mean, I have a good feeling they're going to come out a lot more, you know, fiery than they were to start the Syracuse game. I think they've kind of learned on the road trip like that. You can't kind of you got to have your energy level up a little higher than they did to start that game. So I don't know how. I don't like you said. I don't have any idea what to expect from Louisville. I don't know if they're good or bad or in between. So it's
And
one
the
of those.
leagues kind of look bad, to
Yeah,
be honest, so far. Like, um, someone asked about Trey Cooley. I haven't seen Trey Cooley. Like, haven't seen him since he got hurt in was it the was it the opening kickoff of
Florida
the
State.
Florida State game? Yeah, that was the last time I saw Trey Cooley.
This is a
Um,
Trey Cooley Bowl.
oh yeah, the Louisville game this week. Yeah, and Jackson
Revenge game.
Hamilton,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
who's a special teams player. But I mean, are we going to see Trey Cooley if he's healthy right now? I don't. I played Trey Maddox and Anthony Carey behind Jamal right now, and Caleb Alexander has looked pretty. Or Chad Alexander, sorry, has looked really good. Um, so
Yeah.
that's who I would play if Trey Cooley hasn't shown me enough to be like wanting to run him back out there, especially if he's coming off something. And then Avery Boyd, I think he's done.
Yeah, I think
I think he's a 60-year senior or something like that at this point. He was in Jeff's first full class here. So the class with Jeff Sims and all them. So I think he's done. He might be able to get a medical or something. I don't know. I imagine that dude probably wants to try to make the pros and then move along with his life. He's had a lot of injuries during his time at Georgia Tech and is finally kind of having some success. So hopefully he can make the most out of this season. And they'll get Brett Seither back next year. He's intending to come back for his what would be his like 7th year or whatever it is on a medical. He should get it. So and he can do similar things to Avery, maybe a little less top end speed, but a little more physical. But I think they're okay at tight end. I think they're very excited about Luke Harpering too. We got to see him make his first catch on Saturday. All right, Alex, you want to jump in the questions?
Yep, I'm all good. And they've got those two guys coming in next year's class tight end. I wanted to add like the huge guy from Connecticut and the Wesleyan kid too. That's had a pretty good season so far for them.
Connor Roche and
Roche.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like 6'8", I think, or 6. Yes.
Yeah, he's a big old dude, man. Like a big old dude.
But yeah. First question on here. There's talk about the 3-3 defense and it working so well against Tech's offense. Is this some sort of revelation for opposing teams? Didn't see
like the odd running the odd fronts against them.
Right.
No. I mean, it's like one of those things. Like if people do it enough, they'll come up with whatever the counter is to that. I think it matters who you have running that. If you have that dude from Texas A&M that Syracuse had, or you had isn't that where he was from? The dude that was killing them.
I remember. I think I did the star comparison. I can't even remember.
But anyways, you have him or the guys at Florida State. Yes, that's going to be problematic. What is his name? Oh God.
I know exactly.
Oh, Diggs. The Diggs kid. Fadil
Diggs.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was eating Georgia Tech's lunch. Yes, if you have someone like that, that's a problem. How many of these teams are going to face have like people like that? 2 maybe on the rest of the schedule. Like they have someone that's that elite. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, they've seen all kinds of different fronts. A lot. I mean, Georgia Tech themselves run odd fronts all the time. They run a lot with like Romello standing up or Kevin Harris or whoever. So it's not even something I don't see in practice. So I think that's sort of a myth. There's always all these theories about how you can do X, Y, or Z. I don't think that. I think that it's a coincidental piece of data and a really good player kind of blowing things up more than anything else. And then, to be honest with you, watching the film too, like a lot of the times, like the running back wasn't hitting the hole fast enough, or Haynes should have tucked it and run a couple times. There were opportunities to make plays. They just didn't make them.
I'm not a football guru or anything in offensive line play, but the little bit of football I played in high school, like you didn't worry about the front overall. You had rules like, inside, outside, head up. Like you didn't worry about the front, and you worried about the, where the guy was lined up in front of you. And so I don't think like a 3-3 or 4-3 or, guy standing up or down. Like, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I mean, you're going to watch it on film and you're going to figure out specifically which offensive lineman is responsible for which guy. So I don't think like the overall formation is a bigger thing rather than like your individual rules and, where you're supposed to go on a certain play. So that's old school offense though. So I don't know. That might have changed from when I played a long time ago. Or I was on the team. I didn't play very much. So,
well, here's the question of the day, isn't it? Who's better, Romello Height or Kyle Kennard? JOL has to know. I mean, I'll say this: I've seen Kyle as Brett Key and other people have said over the years, a big play for one team or the other. And Romello has so far not been a big play for the other team. So I would rather have the guy that doesn't negate 2 interceptions for your team. And I love Kyle. Kyle's a great dude. Kyle goes 1,000 miles an hour on the field, and that is his great asset and makes him a dangerous pass rusher. And it's the thing that's killing him, like in his draft stock. And I'd rather have a guy. I think Romello. We have not seen the true Romello high yet. They've played a bunch of teams where basically teams are just dinking and dunking the ball. They haven't played like drop back teams where he would have an opportunity to really get after it yet. So we'll see.
I think Kennard had something yesterday. I missed some of it on the board, but there was talk about him costing a
Oh no, that's what I'm talking
turnover.
about. He apparently committed 2 penalties that wiped out 2 interceptions. I think one of them was, at least maybe one of them was a pick six. Um,
He really has a
so
knack for that.
he is, for whatever reason, man. Like he had a lot of the drive killing penalties last year that extended drives for the other team's defense, where it was like roughing the passer, and some of them were in hands to the face or whatever. I think Romelo's had one of those, and it was in the Florida State game maybe.
Yeah, he had that
Um,
sack overturned.
but I'd rather have somebody doing things that don't hurt the team. And I say that as a guy who really enjoys Kyle. And I understand why he did. He made a business decision for himself. That's why he left. It was not, and not anything against Georgia Tech or whatever. He has a young child. Like, he made his decision he needed to make to take care of his family, and got a really good opportunity at South Carolina, and hope he's doing well. But it sounds like he did not last week, unfortunately for him.
Yep. Next question from the board was about the visitor list. Who actually showed up in the visitor list? Yesterday.
So there was one guy left off who got offered, Jalen Shivers. The guy's committed to SMU.
I've got him on my list to talk to this week to see if that's something.
Yeah, so he's an SMU commit, local defensive lineman. Bo Walker was there. Chase Linton was there. Most of the guys that were of consequence were there, at least for the 2025 class.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some stuff going on, but I think that the recruiting is about to pick up quite a bit. So because of the weather and the uncertainty around all that, they didn't send a lot of guys out last night. They have a bye week coming up after the Louisville game. You're going to see that probably everyone on the staff, except for whatever the minimum is they have to keep back, will be out on the bye week. And that's when I think you'll see another flood of evaluations. They're trying to make their future evaluations right now too. Everyone's trying to figure out what they're going to do with their cap numbers. So if you haven't been following it, they're talking about going to a 105 roster and unlimited scholarships, but no one's going to offer unlimited scholarships because Kirby Smart or Ryan Day or Brett Key are not want to scholarship the third punter and the third kicker and the third long snapper. And like right now, Georgia Tech carries like 4 snappers and like 6 kickers or something. Like, you're just not going to put all those dudes on scholarship. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense financially for the program or the school. But I do think you're going to see, like, instead of 15, 16 offensive linemen, you might have 18 to 19. Same on the defensive line side. You're going to see more guys sign there. And then any of the developmental positions that you can get away with keeping guys. But again, no one wants to go to Alabama or Georgia or Florida State or Georgia Tech or wherever, or Clemson, and be the sixth quarterback and the eighth running back and all that. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody approaches this. I've talked to a bunch of different people at Georgia Tech and at other schools, and everyone's sort of coming up with different scenarios on how they want to do it. And a lot of it also comes down to budget. So there could be another influx of commitments here as they look at the numbers. And they're right now, if it was an 85 cap, would be at 2025 for next year that they could take. But obviously there's been some more attrition, and then there'll be more after the season. So there's a few guys like the Haynes King of the world that we don't know. Haynes technically has another year. Does he take that, or does he go try his luck in the NFL or something? So all of those things factor into that too, and those are things that you won't necessarily know right now.
And I think the offers that are going around right now too is kind of like insurance plans for, like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like they feel good about the commits they have, but obviously, like with the Dinkins situation, like Georgia's going to come kind of from the backside and pick somebody off and defensive line wise, running back wise, you're going to want to try to have somebody in place to fill a spot if you need to. And so I don't know. The Groves kid from Tennessee obviously tore up his knee in his first game. So I mean, I think Georgia Tech would stick with that scholarship. I don't think they would do anything like pull
Well, I
that back.
mean, you literally just saw the fruits of doing that
Right.
with Maddox. Maddox was a guy they might have been in a real dogfight for had he played a full senior year too. Like he was a freaky dude. He played both ways at Parkview, and like everyone was really excited. And that was before they knew they were getting Anthony Carey. Anthony Carey was like a bonus late edition guy and more of kind of a Jameer type, like electric guy. Trey Maddox is something they haven't had in a minute. He is a physical downhill runner that can break tackles and stuff. He's really interesting to me. I'm really curious to see how he does.
Who,
Here we go. Here's a good question from the chat. So Steve wants to know for a 3:30 kickoff, do you relax in the morning? Do research? What time do you get to the stadium? Do they feed you? So I thought about doing it behind the scenes. Maybe this is the week I do it. I've been sort of documenting for the last couple of years a lot of the away games. And I need to like think about a way to maybe document like some of the behind the scenes stuff more. I actually have like enough stuff to probably do something from the Ireland trip. I just haven't had time to edit it. Maybe that's something to do on the plane, traveling around the next couple of weeks when I'm on the road. But so for a 3:30 game, which is weird, those are the toughest ones. Uh, Generally, what I do is depends on how far I am from the stadium. So in Louisville, everything's relatively close. The stadium's right off the interstate. It's not like buried in. It's not like going to like Oxford, Mississippi, or something where you're not staying nearby and you got to like hike in a car. So for Louisville game, I'm flying in Friday. I'll be in a hotel there and do whatever Friday night, and then Saturday, probably eat a late breakfast and then watch some of the noon kickoff games for a while, and then I try to be at the stadium for a road game 2 hours, like parking my car 2 hours before kickoff, and then being inside the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff. Yeah, they have food. Louisville in the past has had a pretty good spread. I don't know if they still do or not. It's been the last time I was there was it 18 when
I
they
know they
beat the
played on
tar out of
Friday
them.
night one time
Was
up
that
there.
was that the game where Wanye had the 100-yard interception return?
I
That
believe
was
so.
when
Yeah.
Paul beat the tar out of them. That was an 18. That might have been the last time I was there for football. So everyone's different. So for like that game for 3:30, I'll be there. That one sucks because you miss basically everything. So you miss the best part of the afternoon games because or the morning the or noon kickoff games you miss like because I'll be traveling maybe so I have like Sirius XM on my phone. I might listen to some play by play if there's an interesting game or something, or walk around a tailgate or something and watch. And then usually in the press box there's an area where there's TVs where you can watch some games. Every school's a little different in how that's set up. Some of them have like a wall of TVs with different games. Georgia Tech, they usually just have one or two games on these big giant TVs that are in the area where we eat. There's always food of some kind. It varies wildly between schools who has decent food and who doesn't, and the menus vary wildly. Usually, breakfast is awful at most places because it's like institutional breakfast, like powdered eggs and stuff like that. It's like eating a continental breakfast. The food can just vary wildly, but so for that game, we'll get done. It's 3:30. I'll be done at 8:30, hopefully. Walk out the stadium, maybe grab a late dinner, and then watch the end of the night games while I'm at a restaurant or back in my hotel room or something. But yeah, it's I try to not there's not much I can do in terms of research or whatever at the last minute. That's all going to be done ahead of time. I don't watch a ton of film. This is a week where I might, just because I haven't seen them play at all this year. Most of the teams I've seen play, or either that or don't care. Like for Georgia State or VMI, I'm not going to be worked up about what they've done. And I watched Syracuse play before then, and obviously it's in Florida State plenty of times. But yeah, that's it's not like taxing, but there's always a lot going on. There's always a ton of my phone's blowing up all the time. So there's a lot of that going on games days too. And then there's constant smack talking, not smack talking. We have some of my friends have quite a few running threads of just ridiculous stuff that happens in college football that we send each other. This week it was myself and another reporter who will remain nameless texting each other the video clips of the Georgia State people rushing the field after they beat Vanderbilt, and like how few people it was, and being kind of amused at them rushing the field over beating Vanderbilt, which would be like Georgia Tech rushing the field after beating Vanderbilt. Or it's just like, that's not like, you didn't beat Tennessee or somebody really good. You beat a Vanderbilt team that like maybe beat a way overrated Virginia Tech team. Like, did you really do something? And I get that. I guess it's like a big win for them, but like it'd be like somebody beat Mississippi State right now. Like Toledo just beat the hell out of them. Is that like something you're gonna be proud of? I don't know.
Yep.
Little side note.
There were some kids that some videos I saw that ate it pretty good, jumping out of the stands to get down to the old Turner Field. So they were probably feeling it today. But this next question I know you asked in the press conference too was about Maddox kind of potentially being the Smith
The guy.
change of pace. Kind of, would you say he's ahead of Carey right now?
I think they're two very different running backs. And I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you are struggling to run block, or it's a more physical game, I think Maddox makes a lot of sense. If there's space to operate, I think Carey gives you a little more of a home run. So I think it just depends on the situation. I think you can play the four running backs right now, can all play interchangeably in some ways, but I think Maddox is going to end up, if he holds on to the ball and does the things he's supposed to do, can be like the Dante Smith guy that's the hammer. And then depending, Jamal's banged up, like trying to play through it, that, he's being very demure about situation, but it's clear you watch him, he's not himself right now. He's not cutting and planting comfortably, so that's impacting his ability to run and get upfield. You saw it a bunch. He's had a bunch of negative runs, which he had like one last year. Like, he was very good about not being bottled up. I think it's just him not being comfortable, not having his wiggle that he normally has either, and his ability to sprint outside. So he's got to get healthy. I think, maybe a situation where they manage his reps a little bit here too to try to get him healthier.
There
But
was a run yesterday too on that very first drive where he came to the toward the near sideline and cut all the way back. And I think if he was 100% and had all his agility, I think there was if he could have went all the way back to the other side of the field and there was kind of open space there, but he's not, obviously not 100% right now, so he's trying to battle through it, and that's why you got to have two or three guys behind him, because you never know what day you're going to need them. So yeah, I mean, they all do the different things too, like you said, Maddox and Carey and Alexander. So
all right, here we go. So Steve here was at the game. Well, I'm glad they're energetic. The problem they've always had there is, it's the thing with a lot of these commuter schools is, if you don't win big to build your fan base, everyone that goes to that school is a fan of somewhere else. And I have firsthand knowledge of this as a guy that owns a South Florida site, covers the University of South Florida, for the longest time, and they had success, but it's been a real grind to get people to come to games, and they play in a pro stadium that's further away from the campus than Georgia State's is, and It's a challenge, man, and like you got to win. That's what Central Florida did, and South Florida. They invested in trying to win, and if Georgia State wants to be good, they're gonna have to spend money. I just don't know where they get the money from to spend it. Like, you know, those two schools, Central Florida, South Florida, are huge and have huge budgets based a lot off of student fees and stuff. So I don't know how you do that if you're Georgia State. But obviously being in Atlanta and stuff, you have some potential there. It's just I like they don't have a huge budget, and I think you got to win consistently to get people to show up. Like whether you're Kennesaw State or Georgia State or any of these type of schools like that, especially when you're in a place where people, let's face it, around here, probably people going to Georgia State are Georgia fans. There's probably a few Tech fans. Clemson, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Florida State. Like they're not Georgia. No one's grown up Georgia State fans. So like that's a huge stumbling block that you have when you've invented a program later on in life, like South Florida or Central Florida or Georgia State, or the three real prime examples I can think of. And two, that they're each three of those are in kind of a different state right now based on their ability to invest in their program and finding the right coaches and winning and all that stuff. And South Florida kind of fell behind when they screwed up and hired Jeff Scott and were terrible for at the wrong time. Whereas Central Florida hit their stride twice with O'Leary and then later with Frosty and Heupel. Won a crap ton of games and was able to parlay that into the Big 12. That's sort of the roadmap if you're Georgia State. I just don't know how viable it is to pull it off there. And I don't know enough about the money and the people behind those other programs and how that all went down. But I'm glad that people were there. I just thought it was funny. They showed like the crowd. I was like, and a buddy texted me who covers Vanderbilt and was like, there was like mostly, he goes, the crowd's mostly like Vanderbilt parents and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of work to do if you're Charlie Cobb and you're running Georgia State to get that thing up and running.
Yep. So here's a question about the linebackers. Do you expect to see the rotations like we had on Saturday for the defense moving forward? I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I think that's been the plan all along. They've wanted to rotate at every position except for maybe corner. Um, the ideal, like if you look at what they do with the defensive line, ideally you would do that linebacker some during games. Now you're not going to do it every drive, but um, um, I guess it would just be like you need to be careful with that because you have such inexperienced guys. It was a little different like last year when they had all those dudes that had played a lot of football on the bench behind Kyle Eifert and Tren and Momola and Moala and um, the other two, Raylan Oliver and who's the other kid that came from A&M? Um, shoot. Anyways, you had like five guys who'd all played a good bit at Kyle Eifert. So you're not in that boat this year. You have Jackson Hamilton, who's been a special teams player at Louisville. You have Tajay Butler, who's a true freshman. VJ Lightsey, who's been hurt, didn't play at Georgia. And then you have Kyle and Tren, who played a lot. So it changes the demographics. My toddler's trying to call down to the air vent to me as he avoids going to sleep.
I
So
think
yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do.
I think Butler's in play. The
Andre
first few
White, not
games.
Andre Miller.
Andre
That was
White.
that was Dre White. That was the linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, Butler's play over the first few games has been really encouraging. I think we
Yeah, he
talked
didn't
about
play
it
at all
last
barely
night.
in the Syracuse game. I'm not sure what that was about.
But like he's we talked about last night, he was kind of a big deal to get in the class, kind of just out of nowhere. He was kind of a steal. I think he's gonna play a lot of football at Georgia Tech.
Here's another interesting question about the offense. How much of the offense have we seen this far? Not a lot. They have not run a lot of stuff at all through the first few games. It's been very, very vanilla, with a few wrinkles. But there's tons of stuff that I mean, have we seen? We haven't seen a pop pass really. We've seen like one or two this year. there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been run in the offense yet. They've had very specific game plans, and really in the first three games going through Syracuse, they were definitely trying to eat the clock and be physical and run the football. And I think last week was more of a balance of what I think Buster wants to naturally do, which is be a little more open. And so it'll be interesting to see if that what that fight looks like as they move ahead. I think the defense playing better would probably allow Brent to be more open to being less run heavy. And they've struggled to run block too. The pass pro has been tremendous this year. They've done a great job with that. The run blocking has been okay at times and bad at others. And so I'm not advocating they drop back and throw the football 50 times like an air raid, but they probably need to have more balance to it. And I'm curious to see what that looks like going ahead.
They've given up 0 sacks, right? I mean, that's what I saw in the notes, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. No sacks and no interceptions. Um, it's clear that Haynes has been told to not turn the ball over. Like he's thrown maybe like 3 dangerous passes this year.
Well, he had that one that Kenyatta Watson picked off against Georgia State.
Oh,
That was
that's right. He
bad.
has thrown a pick. That's right.
But other than that, he
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
made
right. I forgot about
he
that.
hadn't made those Brett Favre type throws as much as as he did last
Sometimes
year.
you need those though to back the defense off. Like even Paul Johnson they'd throw a shot with Tevin Washington, who loved Tevin, great dude, was not Joe Montana back there throwing the football, or even I don't even know if he was Baker Mayfield. Like he was a pretty average arm guy, and they would still take a shot.
Well, I mean, they used a bit more of the downfield passing game yesterday. I know it's VMI, but I mean they used the screens and then they were able to get the ball down the field too. So yeah, I mean I think there's a whole lot more variety they can have in the offense too when they need it. So let's see.
Here's one. Someone asked about basketball. When does basketball practice start up? Mid October. I think it's what is be a week from tomorrow. I think it's the 23rd of September. Not sure. I'll check, but it's like 6 weeks out from the start of the season, I think, and the season starts the first week of November or whatever. So I think that would be it. The 23rd, 24th, somewhere in that window. I guess depending on when the first game is. I don't have that committed to memory yet.
I know that I mean I know it's got to be soon. I know Carolina's having their like whatever they call it. It used to be late night with Roy. Like they're having that the first Friday of October. So they usually practice 2 weeks before that. So that
Yeah,
would
Tech's
be
first game is November 6th. They play the West Georgia Wolves as part of this insanely difficult home schedule they have lined up outside of the Georgia and Cincinnati games. I say that tongue in cheek. It is a very soft non-conference schedule in terms of home games. The Cincinnati game could be interesting. Georgia could be interesting, but everything else is not good. UMBC, Alabama A&M, North Florida, Texas Southern, and West Georgia. So a lot trying to stack them dubs.
all sellouts, right?
um, not even going to sell at the media section for those. Someone's concerned about drop balls. I'm not. They were playing a wet game on a wet field on Saturday. Eric's going to drop some. He's going to catch some. Like he is not He's not Calvin Johnson. He's not 6'5" and 210 pounds with hands like the size of catcher's mitts. He's a dude who's like 5'10". So his hands are like my hands. Like he's gonna occasionally drop a football. Like you just live with that. That's part of getting the high speed thing, and hopefully it gets better and better. But guys are gonna drop passes. That's the nature of the game. Like you just live with it. You're not throwing the ball 12 times a game like you did with Paul most of the time.
He had the I mean I guess you would consider it a drop on that first drive, but like that was close to a targeting call, on that
Yeah, it was
play.
very close.
And the wet ball hit the ground like, yeah, that was a tough one. The Boyd drop, well, I think later on in the first quarter in the red zone, that was a one that should have been called. But yeah, I'm not a big I don't think drop balls are a huge deal right now. I hadn't seen a whole lot of them that's legit drops. So
Somebody asked if we'll see more quarterback design runs going forward. No,
no
I think
less.
they're trying to be careful with Haynes King now. He does he did not look 100% in the Syracuse game to me running around. I think that might have been why he wasn't as able to run or willing to run the football as much as usual. And last year he was banged up and made it through a season. I think they're going to be very careful with him. And you have this stable of running backs who are all very capable of doing stuff, and then you've got creative ways to run the football from Malik or Singleton or hell even Avery Boyd on a end round with the tight end. Like you got a lot of different options to run the football. I don't think they're going to be purposefully running Haynes King more than they need to. Now they're yes, are they going to run him? But um, we'll see.
And they've got Pyron, the TD vulture and short yardage.
Tim Byerly 2.0, yeah.
That's right. So yeah, save the hits on Haynes King as much as you can. That's a big priority.
And they were good about picking their spots last year with that too. Like if you remember in the second half of the season, a lot of his running came in the second half of games to try to wear teams down. So they were very methodical about how they chose to run the football.
I just saw that comment about the Braves, and I went and checked the score, and it went from 3-2 to it's now 8-2. So,
well, that's always fun.
Yeah. Here's several questions in one, but this is talking about Florida and South Carolina maybe getting new coaching staffs. Are there any recruits we can keep an eye on? I'll have to dig into that. I don't know off the top of my head, but obviously, if a coach gets fired, kids are looking for a different option. So, here's a question.
Let me look and see.
Here's a question about Aaron Filo's deep balls. Yesterday had a ton of touch. The guy, our commenter said, in his opinion, he throws a better deep ball than Haynes King. So,
I mean, Philo's got a great arm, man. Like, there's a reason why they worked so hard to get that kid. And again, it's the thing I talked about when they took him. If he was 2 inches taller, they'd have been fighting off LSU and whoever on Notre Dame, whoever on him. He was banged a little bit for his height, but he is a very talented quarterback and a kid that I think has a really bright future ahead of him. But is he the guy yet? I don't know. I don't think that you make those. I don't think Brian has been very clear that they have no intention of making those interpretations this far out. I was looking at South Carolina's class. There's like maybe like a couple like defensive lineman type guys, but nothing really that screams at me of like someone that they're going to go after. And then the Florida Gators, or did he ask about Florida State or the Gators? He asked about the
he said
Gators.
Florida State and Florida, but I don't think Florida State's going to be firing Norvell after
I
extending
mean, I'd
him.
be pretty damn shocked if they fired him.
Yeah.
The Gators don't have much of a recruiting class, like overall. They have like they have like 14 commits or something, and of those, like basically none of them were kids that Georgia Tech was really in on. Florida State,
They don't have a ton either. They were behind.
they
I
have
think.
11.
Yeah, they don't.
The CJ Wiley kid, everyone thinks is going to Georgia, the wide receiver. They beat out South Florida to get Max Redmond, the safety from Cardinal Newman.
I know
Ethan,
Florida was supposed to have a board of trustees meeting today, and people were expecting Napier to be fired, but
I
it's
still
not.
think you fire him now, man. I don't know what you get out
I
of that.
mean, it's
I don't know who's
9:40.
on his staff that can be interim head
Yeah,
coach either.
Yeah, it's 9:45 right now, and he's not fired yet, so I don't think they're gonna
You think he's
do
going
it.
to survive another week?
I would think so.
I mean, are you going to make like Austin Armstrong, who's younger than either of us, the interim head coach?
He
Um,
looks like yeah, I've seen him on the sideline. He looks like he's like a 23-year-old kid out there with.
he's like 30, or maybe like, yeah, I think he's like 30. Um, yeah, like the only guy who could be the interim head coach is maybe the receivers coach. He's been at Florida a bunch of different times, Billy Gonzalez, but like, or maybe Ron Roberts, who was the guy that he's at least been a head coach before Ron Roberts. He was the guy who was in the mix for Georgia Tech's DC job and took the Gators job. Um, he's been a head coach twice in his career before, so I guess Ron Roberts would be a guy. But I think he lives till like Halloween. I think around the Georgia games when old Napier gets the axe.
I mean, they've got a brutal schedule, just like everybody else in the SEC. So I don't know why a
They don't
loss
win
at
this week.
home.
They go to Mississippi State. They can beat them. Central Florida does not look great so far, but then they have go to Tennessee. They play Kentucky and Georgia 3 weeks in a row, and then right after the Georgia game, they go to Texas and then LSU and then Ole Miss, and then that Florida State game, which could be the battle for like 2-3 wins theoretically between those two teams, which would be very funny.
Yeah,
It was like battling to not be the worst team in the state of Florida. That's not Florida Atlantic or FIU or something.
yeah. Here's a question about the interior OL changes where Harrison Morris was rotating a little bit with Fusel yesterday, offensive series off on and off. So um,
Yeah, the Fusel played like the early part of the game, and then they started rotating him out. He seemed like he was struggling again this week, and I don't know. I don't know if he's banged up. It's out of character for him because he was one of the more consistent offensive linemen a year ago. Um, so he could be banged up, could be any number of things. But yeah, Harrison is a guy they love, and I expect him to play more as the season goes along. And yeah, you could see a left rotation like you had with like what they're doing right now with Jordan Brown and Corey Robinson. It's not optimal. Like I don't think normally you don't want to sub on the inside of your offensive line. Like it's easier to sub the tackles than it is the guard box. But it wouldn't shock me to see that. I mean, Harrison's done a great job. He's been. Everyone thought he was kind of like the throw-in on the Graham Knowles deal, and it's turned out he's been out of that signing class the most exciting offensive lineman so far for them. Obviously, it's like super early. It takes 3 years usually to develop offensive lineman, but he has come out of the box firing, so that's kind of cool.
and he's played center and guard, so he's versatile too.
You can
So
play tackle too. So yeah, it gives you a lot of flex.
I mean, I looked at it yesterday in the third quarter and I marked down some of the guys that were playing. I mean, I think they feel good about the next wave of the offense line. Galloway played well when he was in. Brandon Best and um, Moore, and then Tana played center some yesterday. So I think they feel really good about what they built, and then obviously what they've got coming in next year too. So um, more
Agreed.
offensive line depth, the better. Especially you've got an offensive lineman as a head coach. So I think he'll figure that part of it out, if anything else. So um, there's a question about the defense being a little more aggressive against Louisville. Like we said, we don't really know what Louisville is. So I,
I think they'll be more aggressive just in general. I think they've are not going to try to let teams. I don't think Brent wants to play bend but don't break. So that just doesn't seem like his mo to me. Um, so I think they will be aggressive. We'll see though. I mean, it depends. If you can't get a rush, then there's no point in sending 5 or 6 if you can't get to the quarterback. That was the issue in the Syracuse game. They were blitzing at times and they weren't getting to him either. So like when you do that, you just put everyone at a huge disadvantage in the back end. So yeah, they got to get them off their spot. They got to stop the run and get off the field on third downs. That's been sort of the killer for them in a lot of these games. Is just the third down defense getting killed in the soft zone because they're not getting pressure on the quarterback. Um, Obviously, it worked this past week. They got 3 sacks, but need to get some more pressure in these games, get more sacks.
There's a question about notable injuries from the VMI game. I know Zeke Biggers went out, and I don't think he came back in. We don't have any
He
clue
was
how.
fine. He was on the sideline with his pads
Yeah.
on.
Lamiles formed up and did everything. I don't think he played, though.
No, he kept his jersey on the whole game, which was funny. He just didn't have his helmet.
Yeah, but I don't think any notable injuries other than that yesterday that I can think off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, no,
Yeah, seems
I think they're okay. I mean, most of the guys played like 20 snaps or something. Some of the defensive guy, it was hilarious to look at like the snap counts and stuff because they had 11 series that were 3 or less plays on defense. Out of
They gave
the
up one
13
first
or whatever.
down, one first down in the first half, so
Yeah.
wasn't on the field very long. There's a question about the radio broadcast, which we probably don't know anything about. It said that going off the air that they said Bedford wouldn't be doing the color for the rest of the year, so they didn't know who it would be.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So
I'll try
I
to
mean,
find out this week what's
he
going
was
on.
just he like we talked about last week. He was just filling in like in an emergency anyway. So yeah, I didn't think he would be there all year.
I thought he would finish out the season, but it also is possible Sean has other things going on. Sean
Right.
gave that up for a reason. Like he wanted to have his life back. And it's not like you don't make like a lot of money. It's not a money thing. Like the people who do it is more of a passion project for in most places. Because the play-by-play guy, so like Andy has a bunch of different hats he wears, so he does a bunch of different stuff for Georgia Tech. That's a full-time job, right? Where you can make a living. Um, the color guy is generally somebody just doing this as like a weekend gig, and you have to have a real passion because it takes a lot of work to be any good at it. You have to study and watch film, and it eats up a lot of your time. And Sean's a guy trying to like start a family and do stuff, so it wouldn't shock me if he's not wanting to develop that and spend that much time on it if it's not something that he's super passionate about pursuing or making a bigger deal about. The obvious guy is one who's busy, which is Roddy doing TV. But yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I haven't had a chance to talk to Demetra or anyone about it, and he's in a weird spot, so I don't really want to put Andy in a spot where we don't have that kind of relationship. We get along fine, but like he's not going to be confiding in me about
He's
what
not a
they're doing with the
source.
radio broadcast, let alone knowing how that stuff generally works. I don't know. He has a lot of say in it anyways, so he's just doing what he's told. That's generally how that stuff works. So I'm sure that Jay Bat and whoever else is involved in it, the decision making, is it Learfield now? I don't know who their partner is. Whoever it is usually involved in all that. They usually have a list of people and potential candidates and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be Seth Griffin. That'd be my boy Seti. That'd be hilarious.
I listened to they had the Georgia broadcast on Sirius on the way home last night. I listened to Scott Howard and Eric Zier, and I know. I mean, I might, this board might want to not agree with me, but I actually enjoy them. They're homer enough to be like like that's what you want though as a radio team. Like you want the
the
guys
guy
to
to
be
say we and all that.
yes, but not like
So there are
crazy
some
over
Georgia
the
fans who
top.
get mad at Scott Howard about him saying we. So I've known Scott Howard for 25 years. I worked with him back when he was just like a radio guy. He was the halftime guy or whatever for Georgia and doing like Georgia women's basketball or something maybe at the time or whatever he was doing. And so I've known Scott forever. So it's interesting to hear him do the broadcast now because I knew him when Larry Munson was still doing all that. For those that don't know, I started my career in UGA radio of all things, actually. many moons ago. So I am not going to touch the question in the chat.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
saw that.
oh Lord. I like Andy. Andy's a friend of
I
mine.
don't.
I'm gonna
I think Andy
crap
does a
on him.
great job too.
I
Like I
love
don't.
Wiley too. I'd love to see Wiley get a shot at it at some point, but I don't want to see anyone lose their job over it.
Yeah, that.
But
I
so, anyways, no one's gotten him. It's I've never thought Zaire was that great at his color stuff. I haven't listened to the broadcast in a while.
that's the
I
first
like
thing I've
Brandon when
listened.
he did it. So I've listened to in the last few years. There was a game where I had like norovirus. It was the game that they played at Pitt when they had the DJ White strip the ball from the guy in the end zone or whatever. James Conner was running for a touchdown. He stripped the ball and like he was going to the end zone or something. They beat them up there. I had like a norovirus or something. I was like dying, like literally couldn't open my eyes. And I listened to the game on like headphones in my like in the fetal position on my bed. That's one of two games I think I've missed 3 games in my 15 years of covering Georgia Tech. One was for that. One was a Virginia Tech game because of something Virginia Tech did that was not great at the time. And then I missed the Miami game the day my dad died, or it was the day after my dad died. I flew home to Boston or flew up to Boston to be with my stepmother-in-law and deal with all that. But yeah, so anyways, I don't listen to the broadcast that much. I find it distracting when I'm watching the game for whatever reason. So I don't get to hear it very often. I've heard part of one broadcast with Demetra and Joe Hamilton. That was the end of the Miami game here, the last time they beat them when Jeff was coaching. And they were playing Georgia State in basketball that night, and I went over to Georgia State and left the game early. But I don't ever hear it. And I don't listen to the coach's show, to be honest with you, anymore. I used to listen to it. I get enough. And if I need to find something out from Brian, I could hit him up personally. I just don't find that I guess hit the point in my life where I've consumed enough of those things for work that I'm not interested in I'm not the target audience and by any stretch of the imagination for that stuff anyways. But Andy, the thing with Andy, I'll say, is he's always really well researched. He told me some really interesting stats about Georgia Tech. Like he always has like some funny stats he can't use that are like probably like inherently too negative about like various things that have happened that he just comes across that are always very funny. And he's a good dude. Like, but I understand why people are polarized by him as well. But I wish Andy the best. I think he is a good guy.
There's a question on here about burning red shirts, and I don't think that's in the. I don't think they have a grand scheme of things type of plan right now for that.
I mean, there definitely is one. Like they know, like so they're clearly holding Ethan McKinney back to redshirt him. Brent won't admit this, but um, they haven't played him this year, and it's intentional. Like he would if someone were to get hurt, knock on wood in here, on the right side of the offensive line, you would see probably Ethan McKinney play this year. But short of that, I think they would like to redshirt him because he got forced into playing last year. And I think ultimately that's the best for that kid's development because he has a lot of potential with his size and frame and everything to be really good down the line. But if you can get away with not playing him this year, that's a huge bonus for your program. If you feel like everyone's close enough together. So yeah, there's a plan. Brent's just not going to talk about it. I thought maybe they're trying to save Carey, and then they put him in the game. So this sort of changed my mind about him with Evan Dickens leaving, and you lost Jamie Felix. I think you got to play both the freshman running back at this point. Play them the whole season. So I don't think those guys are worth saving. Isaiah Canyon, I think, is headed a red shirt.
He had the
Troy
hold yesterday.
Stevenson, maybe. You know,
Kenyon had the hold on the long carry run yesterday that would have been 40-ish yards, ended up being 20 something.
yeah, that was unnecessary too. It was just not a great play.
Yeah.
He was
There's a
just trying to be
question.
physical because he was out in the field.
Yeah, there's a question on here about being concerned about Jamal's, and it has quotation sophomore slump.
Yeah, it's not that, man. He's just banged up.
He's banged up.
I don't
He's
think there's anything wrong with Jamal. Jamal's Jamal. He's just not. He got, truth be told, he got hurt in the first scrimmage way back in camp and has been trying to gut it out. And I don't know if it's something that'll get better or not. I don't actually know the extent of what his injury is, to be honest with you. I just know it's a lower body. I think it's maybe an ankle or something. But like, just hasn't been the same like this year, and um that's tough. So like when he's not cutting and all that, then if it's not working, then they gotta start looking at Trelane, you gotta look at Anthony Carey and all that stuff.
and he's got the want to play, so like he's
Yeah,
not
and
a
the thing is,
player.
Jamal wants to play. Like he was
Yeah,
mad when they put Pyron in on the goal line, but Pyron had told him like, "Hey, man, you know," because he had just fumbled the football down on the floor. He was trying to switch hands to get into the end zone, and he fumbled the ball switching hands. And Zach was like, apparently told him, "Hey, man, don't try to switch hands like down there, down like that. No wonder, you know, coach pulled you out." Like they were just giving each other a little grief. It was done in a humorous manner, but apparently there was a little funny exchange down there because he was mad because he wanted to get a tutty and didn't get one.
yeah. Um, there's a question about the defensive line. Are they performing below expectations? From my point of view, they are, just because I had crazy expectations for them. Like
I think I mean they've been better than they were a year ago. There's no Keon White, so comparing them to 2 years ago when you had David Turner and Larry Knight coaching them, I thought that was the best defensive line they'd had since 18. That year with Keon and Sylvain both had really good years at that same end spot. They've really just not got much from those rush spots at all. Even with Kennard here, he did most of his damage. He had 1.5 sacks outside of the Wake Forest game last year, I think it was. Um, I don't know, man. It's just like they're cursed or something. They can't get home. They're up to 3 defensive line sacks now, I think. You had Josh get one. You have Kevin Harris had one coming into the game, and then Sylvain got one. So that's 3. Eford has one, and Tatum has one. I think they have
yeah,
5 sacks.
that's it.
It's
I
not
mean,
optimal through 4
that
games.
they rotated. I mean, obviously it's VMI, but even early in the game yesterday, they rotated guys more than they had been. I know
We still
Gore
haven't seen
played.
Norris Lockett, by the way. Like I
Yeah,
thought he was going to play. He was warmed up like he was going to play, and then I think they decided to save him for Louisville. That had been what I'd heard all along with him. He like hurt something in his arm and had a cast on it for a couple weeks, and then all the stuff you could have seen if you were at games, you would have seen him in the cast. Not telling anything out of school here, but I'd heard all along they had targeted the Louisville game for him to come back. So clearly they weren't going to necessarily rush that. Whatever, maybe chipped a bone or something. I don't know. But anyways, I thought he was going to play because he looked like he was going to play. So did Miles, and then they didn't play. So
yeah,
it kind of made me feel stupid for not picking up on them not playing. But it is what it is.
yeah. Gore and Jason Moore played some. Vanderberg's been playing a lot more the last couple of weeks.
Vandenberg's played really well. I think he's been a really nice find for them.
Yep, I agree. Um, there's a question about being safe to cancel ESPN Plus. Like
Oh, for the
hoping,
rest of the season or whatever, because they're upping the price on it.
well, and Duke and Virginia Tech games are like you're hoping they're not going to be on the only streaming option. I wouldn't think. I don't know.
I mean, if you want to watch any of the basketball games, then you're going to probably need
Yeah,
that crap. Yeah, I just described the schedule they're playing for most of the home games, unless you're going. Um, I got to look at the schedule and see which terrible game I'm going to send Alex to because I don't want to go to it. There's been like I've had to go the last couple of years to like there'll be like a game on Valentine's Day or like New Year's Eve. Like there's one December 28th right now that I'm kind of looking at. Might not. that depending on if they're in a bowl game, where the bowl game is, that one might not be happening. So Alex might be doing that one.
What about the playoff schedule, Kelly? You're not giving up on the playoffs yet, are you?
We'll see. Maybe the night before Thanksgiving when they play Cincinnati, that might not be a game I want to go to. When I have to cook for like a bunch of people the next morning. We'll see what happens.
There's a few more on here. Just there's a goofy question about screwing up parking for the Notre Dame game. I don't have any idea about that. Um, there's a question about EJ Lightsey being still hurt. I mean, obviously he wasn't dressed
He
out
wasn't
yesterday.
dressed, so that's
Yeah.
what you need to know. He's clearly not healthy. We're not allowed to talk about that, so sometimes we see things at practice, and I am very careful to not breach the bonds of what Brent Key wants shared and not shared. So yeah, we didn't see him going last week, and then he wasn't dressed. So there you go.
Yeah.
Because people keep asking me, and I have to kind of dance around it. But also, he hasn't played. He hasn't done anything to win a job or anything either. So like, he hasn't been. It's one of those things like the video game. If you play NCAA football game, video game, they make all these dudes who transfer in from someplace like so much better than. So like Romello Heights like significantly better than like Kevin Harris, right? Play the same position. Those two guys split snaps pretty evenly here, and I would say there's not a huge difference between them in terms of production and that stuff so far. EJ Lightsey's like really highly rated, higher than Eford or Tatum or any of these dudes, and clearly he's probably below Tajay Butler right now. Like, in if you were doing the pecking order of the linebackers, him and Jackson Hamilton are probably in the same bucket as like the fourth, fifth best linebacker on the team. I'd say Tajay is probably the third best right now. So like, people always are excited about like the transfer. This kid came from Georgia. Or this guy came from Trey Cooley came from Louisville, or and sometimes it work out. Rylan, Goody was playing at Mississippi State. Well, he's behind the kid from Yale because the kid from Yale is pretty good, Jackson Hawes. And behind Avery Boyd, they moved, and he would have been behind Brett Seither had he been healthy.
Yeah. There's a question about the.
Hang on.
Hey, I saw that. Thought you were going to miss that one.
No. All right, Buzz and Jacket. There is a huge difference between. First of all, I'm not a Tech fan, so I'm not going to the game as a fan. I'm going to the game because it's my job. My job is to cover football, men's basketball, right? I am paid money to do those things. I can pick and choose what games I go to at times. And if I don't want to go cover something because I want to spend time with my family, because I literally sacrifice hundreds of days out of the year to not be with my family, to be real serious for a second, because it's kind of an asshole question. Um, I sacrifice so much for my family to do the job that I do for you guys. So I find it insulting when someone like says something like that. It's just very off-putting. I don't know if it was said in sarcasm or what, but like, my job is to go cover this program. I miss soccer games, basketball, football, whatever my kids are doing, baseball, t-ball. Went to my first t-ball game this weekend because I was able to. So I don't think people understand like the demands of time and all that stuff. I did 90, almost 100 days on the road last year, covering recruiting and different sports and all that stuff. So, you know, that's my response to you.
Yep, I'm with you. People like I've been in the sports writing business for a long time, and people think it's a great job, and it is a great job. But there's like you have to schedule your life around your job instead of the other way
100%. I had a
around.
conversation with my wife tonight because I'm going to be in Louisville, Kentucky for 2.5 days. And so I had to make a whole schedule of what I was going to do. I'm, a remarried dad with a kid from my first wife, who I have joint custody of, I split time with. He has sports he plays. He has stuff he does. He's in high school. I have a toddler who's starting to play sports and do social life and stuff. And so the other thing that comes up is on the weekend, the rare weekends when I'm home, I have to like spend all of my free time going to do stuff to like help my wife out get a break, you know, because she's constantly spending her whole weekends doing stuff. So I think it's funny to me that uh, I think it's funny to me that people don't understand that part of it, because like the truth is, all right, we go from basically August until the end of spring football, which is 8 months out of the year every year. Or really from was they started July 24th or whatever it was this year until the end of spring football, which is usually the first or second week of April. We will have barely any breaks when we're not working nonstop. That's the nature of the business. And then we have sort of a gulf from the middle of April until about the very first of June, the very end of May when OVs start. And that is basically the only break we have. And during that time, I might be doing rivals camps or whatever. So like, um, there's not a lot of free time like in traditional ways. I have to pick and choose how I spend my time with my family and all that stuff. And I cover more stuff than anyone. I covered more last year. I covered more games than literally anyone else that covers Georgia Tech, including the AJC. Like we covered more basketball games, more football games, more practices, more everything as a one man band last year. Now I have a partner in crime that I can do who can do more stuff than Russell was able to do because of he doesn't have a bunch of kids like Russell did. So like
Not yet.
not that we know of, right?
No,
Um
I don't claim them.
so the reality is like, you know, it is a grind and it's a tough job and it washes a lot of people out. There's a high rate of divorce in what we do. You're looking at two people who've experienced that. And uh and I think it's just difficult. So like yeah, as this guy said, like um the reality is, yeah, I missed the Hawaii series last year for basketball, and I didn't go to Cincinnati because I didn't want to I didn't want to travel. That was more about my mom. My stepfather just passed away. My mom was coming to my house for Thanksgiving and wanted to be with us, and so I didn't want to leave my mom. Um, and so I didn't go to the Cincinnati game last year. So I missed the three games in Hawaii, which I had planned to go to, and had my stepfather not died, I probably would have taken the family to Hawaii and that game. And then I hit every football game and the bowl game. And not only did I cover the Tech bowl game, I went covered the USF bowl game the night before in Boca Raton. Drove back across Florida the next day, and then covered the Gasparilla Bowl. So we work a lot. You know, Alex is doing the stuff he's doing for me. He does some freelance writing on the side, still going to some other high school games. We all like work our asses off, man. Like my oldest kid always talks about like that I'm the hardest working person he knows, which is makes me feel bad in a way because like it's so apparent to him like how much time that we have to put into this, and it's tough. But yeah, I just like I don't like that. I mean, I'm not putting in the time the coaches do, but also they get paid like a lot more money than I do. If I got paid what Brent did, then I think the nanny that we would have in our house would be living nanny would be cool with my wife would be cool with me having more stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, I don't own the Texas site or whatever. I'm not rolling in cash either. So
How
it was a struggle to get it to a two-man operation. It's been a lot of work just to get that far.
a couple of points off of that whole thing. Number one is I know what an analyst. I was told by a coach this past summer what a
Oh, hold on. I appreciate it, man. I didn't like. I wasn't Buzz Jacket. Like I did. Like it struck a nerve with me, and this is something that like that comes up a lot, obviously at home, dealing with balancing a wife and a kid and stuff. That's the beauty of part why I hired Alex. To be honest with you, is to have someone that could do what I do and help with recruiting and all those things. So just to be clear, like um, but yeah, I took it the wrong way because I think a lot of people who are in these jobs are fans, and I hired Alex too because he has a passion for it and he is a fan. I wanted someone that had a little more skin in the game than I did in that way. I will say this: I pull for them to do well, and a lot of it comes from the basis of my friendships with people, whether it's Brent Key or David Sotomayor, or being friends with players on the team or whoever. Jamal Haynes to this day still comes up to me every time he sees me and smiles and gives me a hug, because I was like the one person that was like actually still even talking about him a year and a half ago or whatever, when he was the third string slot receiver and people were like wondering if he's going to go in the portal or whatever, like when he's going to leave. Um, I think that the I did need a laugh. Thank you, Nick, for that. I did not I never rooted against Jeff. I actually liked Jeff. I liked a lot of the people that work for Jeff. I got along fine with Jeff. I just thought it was a little bit clownish, some of the stuff he did. And then he needed terribly, terribly needed guidance, and just not a bad, was a bad head coach. But I never pulled for Jeff to lose. Though I will say, I think Ken started pulling for him to lose after we were sitting at that Notre Dame game. They got beat 50-0 or whatever it was, and Ken looked at me and was like, "This is not fun." Um, Appreciate you, my man. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, like, I know that's part of it. Like, you brought me in. I want to take some stuff off of your plate. I know how much you do, and I hope I'm doing that. I'm
Yeah, no,
trying
you're
to
doing a
do
great
it,
job, Alex, man. Like,
and
I appreciate you, and it is
and
nice to have.
I'll keep doing that. I'll keep trying to take stuff off your plate because I know that people have lives outside of what they do. So,
I mean, the
um,
thing is, like, I've always like worked way harder than I probably should be on stuff that isn't as important as this, and this has always been the mothership to me, like covering Georgia Tech, and it's something I wanted and something I pursued. I was told I would never make enough money to actually do this as a full time job, let alone have a second person working for me in a full time capacity. So we far exceeded anyone's outside expectations for us from within my company or other companies as well. And then a lot of that's credit to you guys too that follow us, and I appreciate that as well. Um, it's been a grind, dude. This has not been easy. We've had like literally the worst time in tech history with men's basketball and football up until the point in which Damon and Brent just kind of joined and things have started to do stuff. So Nick's saying he wants you to start talking about your Braves and
I
other
don't think
stuff too.
I don't think people want that. I don't think they want to get into the mind of my fandom. It's a dark place sometimes. So um, I don't know. We'll see. Braves are in a wild card race right now, and I'm not feeling very good about them. So I don't know.
Yeah, the
We'll
Braves
see.
are. It's as a Red Sox long as suffering Red Sox fan now. So it's funny if you guys don't know what's going on with the Red Sox. They're not spending money all of a sudden because I guess they're dumping it into their MLS team. So sort of be like if Arthur Blank just decided to stop spending on the Falcons at all, and they just went all in on. It sort of looks like that in a way because the Falcons are so bad now, but they're just not like
Well,
really being super competitive with. So they just kind of sit at 500. Like they didn't go out and get like what they needed to get. I don't know. I find it fascinating. Like
well,
the
they're
Red Sox have a good team, and they didn't go get anything to help them.
the Celtics are up for sale too, and I know that one of the groups was the Fenway or whoever owns the Red Sox were one of and the Boston people were like, absolutely, we do not want that at all because they've been so bad with the Red Sox lately. So I mean, yeah, but and two, I like yes, it's very hard, but I wouldn't trade doing this. I go back to my UPS days. So man, that was awful. And that might be good for some people, but that's not me. So I'm just thankful to have this. And, you know, even when I was at the paper before this, I worked hard, but it was just one of those where I'd rather be doing that than what I was doing before. So, yeah, it's a grind. Like you said, like for me, my previous job, basically the school year was my full go from about August until May. and then I got a few slow months during the summer. So yeah, I mean it's a grind. You don't get a whole lot of time off, and you got to use it well. So, but yeah, I mean we're in it now. So
Yeah, I was able
basketball.
to go do my European little mini vacation with my wife because of Alex. So it's been good so far. Tate's giving you credit for getting petty. So hey, he's not a
I
five
thought he was
star in
calling
Rivals.
me. I thought he was calling me a 5-star OL. Like I'm like I need to lose some weight or something. So, um, but yeah,
Apparently, Christian Campbell's he's up at Worcester now for the what used to be the Pawtucket Red Sox, the AAA team, and is hitting well. He's hitting 286 there. That'd be cool. I look forward to seeing him. They need a lot of help in the middle infield. So, you guys should be happy with the Red Sox. They fleeced my the Braves fleeced my Red Sox for Chris Sale. Von Grissom, I think, is barely played this year. Was like
and
hitting buck 95 or it was hitting a buck 50 or something.
I'll tell you what, he played up here last year, and I did one of my Rome Brave spotlight things on him, and I really like him a lot. I think he's a good kid, but yeah, that might go down as one of the most lopsided trades in a while because I think I
He's going
saw
to win
they
the
were,
Cy Young, isn't he, Chris Sale?
he leads the league in strikeouts, ERA, and wins. So if he don't win the Cy Young, something's up. So I
That's
don't
not, isn't
know.
that the pitching triple crown or something?
Yeah, so he would be the first one to do if it finishes like that. He'd be the first one to do that in like I don't know. It's been like 30 years maybe. So
Meanwhile, Von Grissom, he played 23 games for the Red Sox this year. I don't think they're bringing him back up before it's the end of the year. He was hurt. Hit
he's
148, no home runs, and
he
he's
he
down at
was
Worcester now.
yeah he. I mean, I think he's got the potential to be a good player in the long run. He just doesn't have a like he doesn't have a position. Like he's just in between third base, shortstop, outfield. Like I think he can hit in the long run, but I don't know. We've gotten way off track.
Yeah, I mean I think they want him to play second, um, but they would projected him to be the Trevor Story replacement. That's the other thing with the Red Sox, man. Like as much as the Brave Sox, Red Sox have paid Trevor Story like $70 million or something. He hasn't played like a full season yet. Um, so could be
I didn't know
worse. You'd be doing that.
I didn't know until the Braves played the Red Sox this year how much they had paid Devers either. I didn't know he's like a $300 million guy now, I believe. Like
Oh yeah, he's
one of
getting
those long term big contracts.
so Story has played. So they got rid of Xander Boat. We're really getting in the weeds here. The last 2 years, Trevor Story's played 58 games total and made uh, $50 million. So he's making almost $1 million a game played. That's some good work if you can get it.
You see that last question? I don't know if they want to get back in on that.
Oh, on someone asked about
Gilbert.
Jonte Gilbert. Yeah, no, we'll see. Aaron Philo is not 6'2". I can tell you that, having stood eye to eye with him. Appreciate it though. Philo's a really good player. I'm not insulting him or anything. It just he is not 6'2". I don't think Haynes King is 6'3" either.
The last question on the board here it says on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is Rod drooling waiting on Tuesday's media to ask about Maddox? Rod was Rod was sitting next to me in the box yesterday, and he was like giving fist bumps to people when Maddox was scoring and like breaking off some good runs. Like I guess he's been the biggest Maddox cheerleader since the beginning. So I mean, good. I mean,
I'm excited. I'm really happy for the kid. Like he's
I
a really nice kid. Like,
and it's been less than a year since the knee. Like I think it was late October or early November, maybe
yeah,
when
it was weird. I remember Russell pinging me, telling me what happened. Um, like we were shocked when we saw him like out of the non-contact jersey a couple weeks ago and was like running around. And then he was like the scout team player of the week last week. And I was like, when that would happen, I was like, oh, he's about to play. Because if he's scout team player of the week, then they're letting him at least be pushed around a little bit. So, yeah. I want to take a minute here also. Hold on a second. Vamp for me for a second, Alex.
I don't know what to talk about.
You
Brave
can
Blue
answer a
one.
question from the chat.
Brave Blue one tonight. We could have had a very profitable night since the Mets lost, but of course we didn't. So we're back tied with the Mets. So there's
The
my
Phillies won,
fandom.
right? And that would happen to
Yeah,
the Mets.
Phillies came back and beat the Mets, which helped us. And then Diamondbacks lost. Our Diamondbacks won. They had a crazy game with the Brewers, so that would have helped. But Braves can't help themselves when they need to. So seems to be the story of the year. Obviously injuries too, but what I can vamp a little bit. The attendance thing I mentioned in my takeaways last night. I did not want to like stir people up, like looking down my nose at Georgia Tech fans. I've always kind of had that opinion of, yeah, we can be serious fan base. We can be a serious fan base, but I mean, eventually you do have to fill the stands up a little bit more. It's hard to do it against VMI, but like that's part of it. If you want to like be considered a legitimate big time fan base, you're going to have to fill the stands a little bit more. So I don't know. Hope I didn't turn people off with that, but
You're right. I mean, you gotta fill it up. Fun question: what player have you covered or met at their height misrepresented the most? Justin Thomas is one. Stetson Bennett, Georgia. Um, hmm,
Graham Knowles is pretty well.
Jose Alvarado. They always talked about Jose being taller than he was. There have been a few. JT was definitely one. JT, like, had he been like the height that people thought he was, he would have been easily playing for Nick Saban. JT and I were like the same height, or he was maybe a little bit shorter than me. Like he looked like yeah, JT came up about here on me, and I'm not tall. So so this is what I was gonna. Why had you vamp? I almost forgot. Once again, I want to thank our friends at Section 103 for helping bring you the JOL TV Overreaction Sunday. You get your best Georgia Tech stuff there. He always has cool designs, and I like that they get like former players and stuff to model the clothes. You've seen Sean Bedford and St. John Days and some other guys model their stuff in the past. Great people. And I enjoy that it's sort of like a homegrown enterprise for something that tech people have always been asking about is cool clothing and attire. So go check them out, Section 103. More comfortable in the club seats, which I enjoy. That's also a great inside joke with what we were just talking about. So go check them out. Help us help you, and all that fun stuff. I'm always excited about having a cool thing like that as a sponsor to our podcast log. But I appreciate everybody for joining us. We're at an hour and a half. I gotta
We were rolling up the
get a
time there.
break here, and sorry for yelling at you. Was it Buzz and Jacket? My bad, brother.
Good
Yeah,
question. You triggered some emotion, so
yeah, man.
hey,
Yeah, I have a little bit of a fuse, man. People have seen it. I have snapped at people before. It's been a long
it
weekend.
happens. It
I was with
happens.
my kids at a trampoline park for almost 2 hours today.
Did you get in on the action, or did you stand off to the
I
side?
did not. They had one of those like awful massage chairs that you can buy. It used to be able to buy like in the Sky Mall catalog or what was it, Brookstones? And
Like in the middle of the mall.
yeah, and so I paid $7 or something to sit on this thing for like half an hour and get angrily massaged by it because it's kind of not super pleasant. I'm a real sucker for a massage, and so I sat in that for a while, and then I read on my phone for a while, and my two boys were running around like crackheads. And then my littlest one fell asleep at like 3:40 in the car on the ride home, so that was fun. So I'm sure my wife's having a blast trying to put him to bed tonight, because he is no longer napping. He's a 4-year-old that doesn't nap, so that's fun. But yeah, I appreciate everybody. And someone asked if we could have a major sponsor. What would you want? I'd like Delta, because I'd like Delta to comp my flights to get around, because that's my biggest expense for my business is the flying. It's the travel expenses. Them or Hilton, who I hotel with. I could take anybody actually if they'd write that off. Or I do need a new car, so I could use an automobile sponsor as well. I had a deal. That was the best ad deal I've had. I had an ad deal. The best like trade deal I ever had was with a dealership when I covered UGA, and they gave me a car for basically swapped out a car
What
for
kind of
ads.
speeds? What kind of speeds did it get up to?
The car that I had? Oh
Does
yeah,
it
that
came
one.
from
Yeah,
Athens?
I gotcha. It's very fast. I saw a funny tweet that I sent it to some buddies today. That was it was an exchange Josh Pate, the vlogger, podcaster, or whatever you want to call him, had with somebody. He was talking about some game, and they're like, "Why aren't you talking about the Georgia Kentucky game that's real close?" And he goes, "Well, I'm in a car driving." So I was trying to be safe and not do that. And then somebody goes, "Well, yeah, you're being safe. You're driving while Georgia's playing a football game. That's the safest time to be on the road."
That's right.
I was like, that's rough.
I'll take sponsors from Lemon Lime Powerade. Let's see. Jimmy Dean sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits is one of my favorites. So what else?
Oh, you missed it at SEC Media Days in Atlanta in 2023. They had in Atlanta. And they were Jimmy Dean. Those like breakfast sandwiches were a sponsor, and so they served that as the media breakfast, and people were angry, like visibly angry about it as one of the things, because it was just like microwavable biscuits. And they're like, "What the hell is this?" The
What's wrong with
elitist
people?
media was mad. They wanted like the hotel catering breakfast or whatever. But
Yeah,
that is funny. You like that?
I have a
Everybody like
steady,
has like trash food. They like, man, Jimmy. Nothing wrong with Jimmy Dean
I have,
sausage.
have a steady diet of that, and also flaming hot Doritos, my favorite. So I eat well. I'll say that.
You- oh, we could insert many jokes right now. At least you're not drinking like weird Mountain Dew flavors or something.
Nah, I try to stay.
Or Big
I've
Red.
gotten,
You're all
I,
in the Big Red.
yeah. I try to stick to the water and the Powerade. I don't drink a lot of Cokes anymore. Every once in a while, but
All right, we'll end on this one. Eric dropped in a last question here. Seeing Louisville fans bark. Fans are going to bark about everything. They were barking at us about Fran Brown's delusions last week. I say that no one in the ACC right now is in a position to bark about anything. You can remind the Louisville games of what happened in the first half last year in the Benz. If they want to bark about something that was a less talented Georgia Tech team than I think the one they have this year.
I don't know why they would be barking like we said, they have played two
Two of
non
the worst
real
teams
football
that anyone in
games.
the
Yeah,
ACC has
so
played. Yeah, like bad. Like they haven't, like they Miami's played a slightly better schedule, but just like slightly with Florida. They played some pretty bad teams. That Ball State game was easy money last week. Shout out to Bronston, by the way, who killed us all in the pick-em-ins.
yeah, he texted me today. I gotta update that. Yeah,
I
I
did
think he
really
lost one
poorly.
game.
I had a bunch of backdoor covers that didn't backdoor for me.
Yeah, I'll have to update that. I don't. I'm 8-17 going into this last week, so I don't know if I can go
I
much
think
lower
with
than
like
that.
it's like almost you're at the George Costanza point where you have to do like the opposite of
That's right. I'm gonna fade
make that work.
myself.
All right,
Yep.
folks. We appreciate everybody for joining us, and I'll try to put this out as a podcast for you guys. And for those who want to listen in the car, you missed out on my double birds that I threw earlier inappropriately.
That should be the
Appreciate everyone.
screenshot for the episode.
I'm sure. Yeah, let's just make that the thumbnail. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.